want to know why we burn. We are not born equal. We must be made equal by the fire. And then we can be happy.
Welcome to Film and Page. I'm Dominic, and in this video I'm going to be talking about Fahrenheit 451. Not the book, but the HBO made-for-TV movie based on the book. And so this movie stars Michael B. Jordan as Guy Montag, Michael Shannon as Captain Beatty, and Sophia Boutella as Clarice, and Laura Harrier as Mildred Montag, which is interesting because she's not in the movie. Not in the version I cut, unless her scenes are chopped out of the movie. She's not even in the film. Mildred's not in film. Which is the start of one of the many problems of this movie. So I'm going to say this right away. Spoiler alert. I'm going to get into a lot of detail about this film. So if you haven't seen it, spoilers. Spoiler warning, you got it now. So I'm a big fan of Fahrenheit 451, the book. And I was really excited when I first heard about this movie, and it took me a while to actually be able to get to see it, because it wasn't available on any of the streaming channels I have until recently. So I watched it, and I was very disappointed. Very disappointed. I'll put it to you like this. If this was just like an original standalone sci-fi one-off that HBO did, it would be okay. But but this was supposed to be based on Fahrenheit 451, and it's a very bad interpretation. So I'll give a little breakdown on the plot. So it's in this unspecified time in the future, which they don't specify. Like the novel, all books are banned, but in this version of the future, it's not only books, but basically all media from the past has been banned. So that means newspapers, VCR tapes, old CDs, anything like that has been banned, zip drives, anything. And in this future, apparently there was a civil war that was brought about by social media, where there were too many opinions on social media, and everyone kept bickering on social media, and that spilled over into real life, and it caused the Civil War, which I thought was very interesting and pretty relevant considering what's going on right now with all the stuff happening, how social media can spill over into the real life. So as a result of this, they just basically banned everything. Everything was banned. Anything that could even be... They just banned everything right across the board, so no one could be offended by anything, and they got rid of social media. And they have some kind of like new version of the internet. And so Guy Montag, who's played by Michael B. Jordan, he's, again, like in the book, they're part of a fire department. They hunt down like physical media and books, and they burn them. And they make a really big spectacle out of it. And then books aren't totally banned, but they're condensed. So like the story of Moby Dick has been condensed into one paragraph. So all the things that could even remotely be offensive has been taken out of the story and condensed all in one paragraph. Here's everything you need to know about the book in one paragraph. And then all books are banned. So the first part of the movie, they seem to follow the book kind of close. But then... where the book was written in a different time, they have to shoehorn like the internet and all that stuff into this new version to make it relevant with today's tech. And the other thing is the plot starts to divert heavily from the book at one point. So the first way it diverts heavily from the book is Guy Montag doesn't have a wife in this movie. So there's no Mildred in this movie with her and the weird screen where like the idiot box where she just zones out in front of it. And... which is an important part of the book, because the whole point of the book is Fahrenheit 451. A lot of people think it's about censorship, and I was one of those ones. Even though censorship is definitely a theme in the book, it was Ray Bradbury's opinion basically on television and what he thought of pop culture. He thought it was just dumbing people down and making them stupid. And then this was a way that governments could control people by keeping them dumb, by keeping them hooked on like all these stupid shows on TV, and then banning all the books or anything that would actually make you smart. So they missed the mark there with that in the movie, because they don't really get into that. It's more about censorship. And so the other thing is, in this future, they've completely rewritten history after the Civil War. So it's told they have a totally different version of the United States history. It's all like basically a version that's not offensive at all to anyone, and nobody knows what really happened in the past. Now, there's kind of like this weird subplot that's in this movie where Montag and everyone else in this universe, they put these, like, they have these drugs, and it's in the form of eye drops. They put in their eyes, and it kind of, but it doesn't really clearly explain what exactly these drugs are doing to them. If it's like getting rid of their memory or altering their mood, it doesn't really explain it, because Michael B. Jordan, character, in the movie, he keeps having flashbacks of his childhood, but his memory is always really foggy. He doesn't really remember his childhood very well, and so they don't really explain, is it just because he's repressing his memories, or do the drugs repress your memories? Like, that part isn't clear. And so Michael Shannon, like, the acting in this movie is fine. Michael B. Jordan, I like him. I really liked him as the villain in Black Panther, and he was really good in the Apollo movie. And so he's okay in this, and same thing with Michael Shannon, but it's just the story itself really drags it down. Now, another big deviant from the book is Clarice. In the book, she's like a rebelling university student, and in this one, she's like this underground kind of cyberpunk character that Montag ends up having an affair with, kind of falls in love with. So that was kind of like a weird diversion. And the other thing, the Hound from the book was one of my favorite things in the book. That Hound that they would send 100 people down and had like the poisonous needle on its snout. That's not in the movie at all. Kind of has a flying drone with a camera on it. I guess that's supposed to be their version of it, but it wasn't anything like what's in the book, the Hound in the book. So the Hound's not even in it. And so really towards the end, this is where it really diverts heavily from the book. At the end of the movie, Guy Montag, and all the people that round up the books, they all get cornered, and their library books gets torched. And then Guy Montag himself gets killed by Michael Shannon's character, Captain Beatty. He burns Montag alive with his flamethrower. So it was the other way around in the book. And the other thing they have, because they then, like, halfway through the movie, they kind of shoehorn this other subplot in it. This thing called Omnius in it. And what it was is they were going to store all the knowledge, all the books in the world, encode it in some type of DNA, and then let it loose in the animal kingdom. So then all the animals and all the plants would have all the world's books, like, encoded in their DNA. So that way it could never be censored again. But it didn't explain how in the future you'd ever be able to retrieve this information or anything like that. So how they're going to do it, they want to get this bird that they have the thing hidden inside this bird's DNA and bring it up to a scientist in Canada. And he's going to extract this DNA and somehow get it into all these different animals. And once they go out and start mating and spreading, and it'll spread the hidden knowledge all throughout the animal kingdom. So at the end of it, just before Montag gets torched and killed, he gets a chance to set this bird free, and the bird flies away. And it has some kind of little red tracking device on its leg. You don't see it actually make it to anyone in Canada. Just at the end of the movie, it gets lost into a big flock of birds, so you don't even really know what happens to it at all. And so it was a really, like, unsatisfying ending, and it really diverted big time. And the other thing is, it didn't have in the original novel, in the background, as the story's progressing, in the background, there's like a nuclear war is gearing up to start, and actually happens. And the United States gets nuked. And the city that Montag lived in, as he left, it got blown to pieces. It got hit with a nuclear blast. And that's not in this book at all. So that's another big change. And then it doesn't really explain, like, if it's just the United States that is in this situation, because it talks about, like, dark nations or rogue nations. So maybe not every nation has done this with their social media. So it was kind of like the world wasn't really explained very good, like the world that this movie is set in, or anything like that, like where it was much more clear-cut in the book. It wasn't. And so I think what really hurt this movie is trying to really modernize it and, like, force all this stuff in it that really didn't need to be. And I guess in this movie, where the book was like a commentary on the dumbing down of the population by television, this movie is more or less a commentary on current outrage culture, like taken to the most extreme extent, where everyone's getting outraged about everything over the internet. They just basically universally ban everything, and then control everyone's moods with these weird drugs. So no one can ever get offended by anything again, because everything is censored. So whatever information is released, it's just totally whatever the state releases. It's all totally controlled by the state. So the message of the movie is completely different from the message of the book. So it's really different, and now it has that like made for TV movie look to it. Like it looks like a 2-hour. It's like a two-hour TV episode. That's how it looks like. It doesn't have that big cinematic look, which I wasn't expecting because it wasn't released in theaters. But some of the letdown, I guess, is I was hoping the Hound was going to be in it from the book. That was a big disappointment for me, and I didn't like the romance between Clarice and Montag. I didn't like what they did to the she was totally different, changed from the book, and they took his wife out of it, which I think, because in the book that kind of creates a good contrast between his wife and Clarice, the university student, as a good contrast, where one is totally reasonable and normal and educated, and his wife is like just off her rocker, crazy and like a total ditz, because she just wants to spend all of her time inside of that screen that's constantly playing on the wall and keeping her dumbed down. So you don't have that contrast. It's gone now. And this is almost like, they almost made it more of like a modern day cyberpunk. So this is the thing about these kinds of adaptations. I don't know why they do it. Like, what's the point of making this movie if you're going to change it so much to the point where it's not really Fahrenheit 451 anymore? Why didn't you just... they could have just changed a few names around and altered it a little bit more, and it would have been like an original sci-fi movie. And I think that hurts these films more. Like, if this wasn't Fahrenheit 451, it would have been just like an average sci-fi movie. I probably would have liked it not a lot more, but I was expecting Fahrenheit 451, and I got something different. I got something that wasn't Fahrenheit 451. It was basically someone trying to piggyback their original sci-fi concept on the Fahrenheit 451 name to try to get it out there. That's what it felt like to me. So if you're a fan of the book and you're looking for an honest film adaptation of the book, do not recommend this movie at all. You'll be disappointed. You won't like it. If you're just looking, if you don't care about a faithful adaptation, you're just looking for to kill a couple hours with a run-of-the-mill average sci-fi movie, then I guess it's okay to watch. But if you're looking for, like I said, a good adaptation of Fahrenheit 451, give this one a pass. I saw the 1960s version of the movie, but it was almost 20 years ago now, so I can't remember how close that one was to the book or not. But I can from what I think, I'm pretty sure it was a lot closer to the book than what this modern film was. Which is really disappointing, because I think the story of Fahrenheit 451 is a good story. It's a really classic sci-fi story. And I think what they should have done is just, instead of forcing like a lot of the modern day tech in there and putting like a modern day modernizing it too much, just make it like a period piece or something. Have it take place in like an alternate universe of the 1950s or something like that, where history worked out different or something like that. I think that could have been done. Would have been done a lot easier, and I think it works better for some of these dated period pieces, because you can kind of get the message across better. That's what I got to say about the film. I was really disappointed, and it was one I was looking forward to, and I purposely stayed away from all reviews of this thing and everything until I got to see it, and I was not happy at all with the final product. I didn't care for the movie at all. It's definitely one I'll never watch this movie again. I don't think I'll ever give it a second go, because there's no point. So that's everything I got to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and I will see you at the next one. I'd like to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I appreciate you all in helping this channel grow. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded.